The hymn number in your order of service is incorrect. The correct number is 293. Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Madison. This is a community where curious seekers gather to explore spiritual, ethical, and social issues in an accepting and nurturing environment. Unitarian Universalism supports the freedom of conscience of each individual, as together we seek to be a force for good in the world. My name is Dorrit Bergen, and on behalf of the congregation, I would like to extend a special welcome to visitors. We are a welcoming congregation, so whoever you are and wherever you are on your life journey, we celebrate your presence among us. Visitors are encouraged to stay for our fellowship hour after the service and look for people carrying teal stoneware mugs. These are FUS members knowledgeable about our programs and community life, and they look forward to the chance to speak with you this morning. You can also stop by our information table outside of the library, where you can find more information about our upcoming events and programs. In this lively acoustical environment, it can become difficult for those in attendance to hear what is happening in our service. So we remind you that our Child Haven and Commons areas are excellent places to go when someone needs to talk or move around. The service can still be seen and heard from those locations. We do have hearing assistance devices available. Please see one of our ushers if that would be helpful for you. This would also be a good time to turn off cell phones or any other electronic devices you might have. Experience guides are available to give a building tour after the service, so if you would like to learn more about this sustainably designed addition or our National Landmark Meeting House, please meet near the large glass windows on the left side of the auditorium. I'd now like to acknowledge those individuals who help our service run smoothly. On sound, we have Mark Schultz. Your greeter this morning was Maureen Muldoon. Ushers are Ann Smiley, Tom Dulmage, and Ron Cook. Coffee is being made by Sharon Scradish and Jean Hills, and the tour guide this morning is Tom Detmer. Please note the announcements on the red floors insert in your order of service, which describe upcoming events at the Society and provide more information about today's activities. And I have two special announcements. As part of his class on Alternative Voices of Humanism, TK will be leading a class of readings and discussion of the writings of Sherry Maples this Tuesday, September 26th at 6 p.m. We will meet on the ground floor of the Isom House, which is the building behind the playground, for the hour before the memorial service for Sherry. Registration for the class is not required to attend this session. Requesting gala assistance. We are planning a fun-filled event, the Rite of the Roof Gala, on October 13th, and we need your help. As part of the event, we'll be hosting a very special, limited live auction. We're looking for experiences, such as a private chef for an in-home party, along with Frank Lloyd Wright-themed items. In addition to auction contributions, there are event sponsorship opportunities available. Please consider your employer, family, friends, or neighborhood connections for this occasion to help. Contact Molly Kelly at mollyk@fusmadison.org if you have any suggestions or something to contribute. Your support would be greatly appreciated. Again, welcome. We hope that today's service will stimulate your mind, touch your heart, and stir your spirit.
Our opening words today are from Marta M. Flanagan. Holy Mystery, known by many names, Creator, Sustainer, Redeemer, your presence is known in the balance of the days, as darkness stands co-equal with the light. in the dance of bright flaming leaves, and in the lingering embrace of a trusted one. Fill us this day with your kindness, your power, your sorrow. Help us to see our lives with the freshness born of the Spirit. Lift up the blessings, the loved ones, the ones we treasure for simply being themselves, the ones we laugh with, the ones who teach us to trust ourselves. Hold close the ones who are ill this day, those who feel the discouragement of the body. Stand by those who know their time is limited. Fill them and us with peace and courage. Gracious giver, release us from your burdens, from our burdens. As we begin the Jewish and Islamic New Year, we bring the memories of the past, times when we fell short, times when we were hurt. We have fear, worries of what will be and how we will make do. We get carried away with small concerns, the daily issues that press upon us. Help us to let go, free us from inner bonds. We look at ourselves, the advantages we have been given, the opportunities we have seized. Fill us, O Nurturer, with a sense of gratitude for the gifts that are ours, knowledge, skills, and hard-won insights. Not just to give back, to reach out, sharing our talents, our riches, and ourselves with those who are discouraged, disheartened, or simply unaware, with the young, the dispossessed, the elderly. Spirit of humanity, grab our attention, seize us with the brightness of this day, with the miracle of life itself. May we be filled with new passion, new resolve, heeding your quiet call to take the next step. Amen. Dorit will now assist me with the lighting of the chalice. And you can read along with me in your orders of service if you can rise in body or spirit. We are the ones who like to call it like it is. We want to speak truth when truth isn't easy, to speak kindness when hatred seems everywhere, to speak wholeness to a world that seems broken, to speak peace to all that are here. And I invite you to speak peace to your neighbors and greet them on this lovely Sunday morning. a story for all ages, so if all the young and young at heart want to come forward, I'm going to do a story. I got it now. I was just not wanting to greet all the kids and have you all hear it. Today we're going to talk about names. Does anyone here have a name? Oh yeah, that pen. I saw that pen earlier. Thank you. Does anyone here have a name? All right, on 3, we're all going to shout them out super loud. 1, 2, 3. Today's story is called I Am Jazz. There's Jazz. Has anyone heard this story before? No, that has. All right. For as long as I can remember, my favorite color has been pink. My second favorite color is silver, and my third favorite color is green. Who's got a favorite color? All right. Whose is blue? Whose is green? Whose is yellow? Whose is purple? Pink? Silver? What else have we missed? Anybody else? Indigo, nice. Black and white. Yellow and tan, nice. Just tan, okay. Red, all right. Here are some of my other favorite things. Raise your hand if you like these things when they come up. Dancing, singing, backflips, drawing, soccer, swimming, makeup, pretending I'm a pop star. I like to pretend they're a pop star. Most of all, I love mermaids. Any mermaids fans? Sometimes I even wear a mermaid tail to the pool. My best friends are Samantha and Casey. On 3, everyone shout out their best friend's name. 1, 2, 3. We always have fun together. We like high heels and princess gowns or cartwheels and trampolines. Okay. But I'm not exactly like Samantha and Casey. I have a girl brain but a boy body. This is called transgender. I was born this way. When I was little, my mom would say, "You're such a good boy." And I would say, "No, Mama, good girl." At first, my family was confused. They'd always thought of me as a boy. As I got a little older, I hardly ever played with trucks or tools or superheroes, only princesses and mermaid costumes. My brothers told me this was girl stuff. I kept right on playing. My sister says I was always talking to her about my girl thoughts, my girl dreams, and how one day I would be a beautiful lady. She would giggle and say, "You're a funny kid." Sometimes my parents let me wear my sister's dresses around the house. But whenever we went out, I had to put on my boy clothes again, and this made me mad. Still, I never give up trying to convince them. Pretending I was a boy felt like telling a lie. Then one amazing day, everything changed. Mom and Dad took me to meet a new doctor who asked me lots and lots of questions. Afterward, the doctor spoke to my parents, and I heard the word transgender for the first time. That night at bedtime, my parents hugged me and said, "We understand now. Be who you are. We love you no matter what." Mom and Dad told me I could start wearing girl clothes to school and growing my hair long. They even let me change my name to Jazz. Being Jazz felt much more like being me. Mom said that being Jazz would make me different from other kids at school, but that being different is okay. Who's different? Anyone here different? It's okay. What's important, she said, is that I'm happy with who I am. Being Jazz caused some other people to be confused too, like teachers at the school. At the beginning of the year, they wanted me to use the boys' bathroom and play on the boys' team in gym class, but that didn't feel normal to me at all. I was so happy with the teachers when the teachers changed their mind. I can't imagine not playing on the same team as Casey and Samantha. Even today, there are kids who tease me. Who's been teased before? Anybody? Or call me a boring name, or ignore me altogether. This makes me feel crummy. Then I remember the kids who get to know me usually want to be my friend. They say I am one of the nicest girls at school. Are you the nicest girl at school? I don't mind being different. Different is special. I think what matters most is that what a person is like inside. And inside I am happy. Anybody happy? I am having fun. And I am proud. I am Jazz. All right, we're going to sing a hymn as you guys head off to class now. Bye-bye, Lula. Our first reading today is a Rosh Hashanah meditation entitled Come Home, written by Devin Spire. To the daughter who does not visit her mother, we say, come home. To the mother whose family has perished from old age or enmity, we say, come home. To the son whose father is unknown, we say, come home. And to the brokenhearted who has been bound by all of this or none of it, we say, come home. As you turn to us during these holy days, let us turn to you. Our souls walking toward each other and welcoming each other on the long and mysterious walk home. The next reading is by Denez Smith. It's entitled Alternate Names for Black Boys. 1. Smoke above the burning bush. 2. Arch nemesis of summer night. 3. First son of soil. 4. Coal awaiting spark and wind. 5. Guilty until proven dead. 6. Oil-heavy starlight. 7. Monster until proven ghost. 8. Gone. 9. Phoenix who forgets to unash. 10. Going, going, gone. 11. Gods of shovels and black veils. 12. What once passed for kindling. 13. Fireworks at dawn. 14. Brilliant shadow-hued coral. 15. I thought to leave this one blank, but who am I to name us nothing? 16. Prayer who learned to bite and sprint. 17. A mother's joy and clutched breath. I'm afraid I have some bad news. You should probably sit down for this. Oh, that's great. Several months ago, we received news that a particularly evil corporation, you know the one, secretly procured the copyright to the name Unitarian Universalist, which they will now use, we understand, to roll out a new line of beauty products. And we will be forced to discontinue using that name. It's very unfortunate. Luckily, there is also some good news. When the UUA, what will soon not be the UUA, learned about this terrible occurrence, they immediately formed a Unitarian Universalist renaming task force, UURT or YURT. And I have been serving on that task force now for several months. We are happy to report that after months of debate, we have come up with several outstanding options, and I am fortunate enough to be presenting those options to you today. First off, we have the Church of Applied NPR. Closely related to this, we have On Church with Krista Tippett. Next, we have the particularly strong contender, the church we really hope Mary Oliver finally joins someday soon. A little convoluted, yes, but we like the hopeful message. And finally, we have the very controversial option, the unbearable whiteness of being. Love that one. All strong choices indeed. All right, this was just a joke. Hopefully that was obvious. But this extended joke was meant to introduce a serious topic. Names. Names are extremely tricky and extremely important. And as an example of that, I want you to consider just how difficult it would be to rename this organization if ever the need arose. Can you imagine those actual committee meetings? I faced a similar dilemma a couple of years ago. And while it was also funny, it was also pretty serious. I was born into the Mormon church and given the name Timothy K. Browning on one of my first Sundays on earth. I lost that Mormon faith in a Wendy's parking lot at the edge of the Great Smoky Mountains in eastern Tennessee, on our way moving to Madison for the first time in 2012 after a summer in South Carolina. It was the culmination of a 3-year-long process of personal, moral, and spiritual evolution away from Mormonism that began sometime around the birth of my first child in 2009. And for some reason, it all came to a head that moment in a Wendy's parking lot. I had read and heard about moments of losing faith from other people in a similar situation to my own, but I was not prepared for the complete disorientation that accompanied that moment. As I felt for the first time the weight of a universe vaster than my imagination, with no benevolent hand guiding events everywhere, I could suddenly feel the speed of the world hurtling through space, only held tight by some inexplicable force called gravity, and with only a totally bizarre collection of gases held together by other strange forces between me and the vacuum of space. Since that moment, I can honestly say that I feel like an almost completely different person than that person who believed with certainty before that a God with a plan of happiness was watching over my life to make sure nothing went terribly wrong. So even though I kept the name Tim, I never felt like the Tim that I had been before, a sentiment that was echoed with sadness by plenty of family members and friends. There's a lot more to that story, obviously, and I know there's nothing that UUs love more than a good losing your religion story. But all the other juicy details will have to wait for another Sunday. Where this story meets this sermon is that after moving away from Madison to attend seminary in 2014 in Austin, Texas, I decided to change my name to TK partway through my first semester. Seminary was a fresh start in so many ways, and it felt like this would be one of them. To be honest, TK still feels like an awkward fit. Should I have just used initials instead of spelling out my middle name, K-A-Y? Should I have just used K? Should I care so much about something as simple and commonplace as a name? Everyone's got one, so what's the big deal? But by whatever chance of fate, in the same month, I lost my faith in Mormonism, but before I changed my name to TK, I found a home in Unitarian Universalism here at FUS. And if nothing else, people in Unitarian Universalism are those who like to call it like it is. We are people who care about names. And the good news is, we are not alone. The history of human religion is replete with examples of names that have been given great importance. The name of God is a sacred truth in every major religious tradition in which God is a figure. In Judaism, the name of God is so sacred that it cannot be spoken except only on select holy days. The gods of Hinduism are given many different names for their many different representations or avatars. Many Sikhs, Jains, Buddhists, and Hindus perform japas or meditative repetitions of God's name. In Islam, God has 99 sacred names, often used as a mantra for believers. In Christianity, the name of Father, Son, and Holy Ghost are invoked in all manner of religious ceremonies, and these sacred names are often attributed the power to cast out devils and forgive sins, simply by a timely invocation of those names. However, it is not just the name of God that has spiritual importance in the major religious traditions. The naming of children is a sacred rite in many religious spaces. Barbara G. Walker, in her fantastic work, The Woman's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets, which was the first book I pulled from my internship's shelves in my office, argues that most religious naming ceremonies come from the ancient tradition of mothers giving their children sacred names previous to their first nursing, a name that is often considered to be the secret name of the child's soul. Walker further points to a connected belief in many religious traditions of the power of secret names to control or obligate to action a person, deity, or demon that was named. Religious history is also replete with examples of people receiving new names in adulthood to mark significant spiritual thresholds in their lives. Abraham and Sarah, the great father of 3 major religious traditions and mother of 2, Islam, remember, was Hagar, were once Abram and Sarai. Their grandson Jacob would be named Israel after his wrestle with God. Paul, the Christian, was once Saul, the Christian persecutor. Siddhartha Gautama became the Buddha. Miriam Simos became Starhawk when she became a full neo-pagan practitioner, and other examples abound. All right, so far I have compared myself to Abraham, Sarah, Paul, the Buddha, Starhawk, and God, which seems about right. Here's the thing, though, about Unitarian Universalism and its insistence on the inherent worth and dignity of every person. The spiritual growth of transformation of every individual, deity or not, is worth just as much as anyone else's. Of course, changing my name doesn't really erase my past. It doesn't make me a new person. It's just a name after all. But the possibility of discovering and developing a new kind of me is a reality that I deeply hope this new name points to. A process that you will get to experience up close and personal these next 9 months. We have all, hopefully, been taught something about the sacred value of names. Much more significantly, I want to be clear, than trying out a different nickname after changing religions, by the prophetic voices of those in the trans community like Jazz. As people bravely embrace their authentic gender, despite transphobia and a Western social construction that falsely suggests there are only two genders. For many, the renaming is a sacred moment of claiming for the first time who they have always been. The Bible speaks of raising an Ebenezer, of unhewed stones in the wilderness, marking a point in the journey from which return is impossible, a marker of a journey unfinished, yet indefinitely begun. And I am grateful that this community, this trans community, has shown me the true power of correct naming as a marker of transformation towards wholeness. Names matter. That is my core message for today. And trust me, this is a message to myself as well, as I am really, really awful at remembering names. The task of correct naming is essential. It's not hard at all to find examples of how ill-begotten naming can be incredibly destructive. One that is close to my heart is that found in the Book of Mormon, the most sacred text of my youth. When the Lamanites, one of the two primary nations whose story is told in this book, became markedly more evil than their cousins, the Nephites, they were said to be given dark skin as a curse and as a warning to their light-skinned siblings. This naming of blackness and darkness as evil undeniably played a key part in the policy of Mormonism of denying African American men the priesthood until 1978. African American women, along with women of all races, are still denied that office today. In the broader society, we only need to look at the endless efforts of some to rebrand sexism, homophobia, and transphobia, racism, and white supremacy as traditional values or alt political views, to see how evil forces recognize and utilize the power of names for their own purposes. Without a divine mandate, if good names are to become sacred names for Unitarian Universalists, it is up to us to make them so. We make good efforts to recognize this with our child dedication ceremonies, of which we will have one soon. But we still have work to do. So let's start with something simple. The first principle of Unitarian Universalism is, in large part, a challenge to name things correctly. Can we name the flaws in the human family, the brokenness, and still testify to the inner worth and dignity at the soul of the human family? Can we do so for our neighbors, for our family, and even for that guy who inhabits the big white house on Pennsylvania Avenue? And most of all, can we both name our own flaws, the times we have hurt others, and still name the wholeness within? Whatever words you use to help you understand this paradoxical human condition, sin and grace, ego and true self, we must name them deliberately and affirm them prophetically. But names, of course, are not everything. Naming racism is a great place to start. Naming sexism is a great place to start. But for names to be given true power, they must be tied to a commitment to action. Naming white supremacy, for example, within our own denomination, has been a very painful and meaningful process for those involved, one that is not yet fully completed. But the work of doing something about it is just beginning. Now, we have a name for ourselves, Unitarian Universalists. It's a fine name. These words conjure up our commitment to foster unity in our communities and congregations, as well as our recognition of our community's place in a much broader universal web of life and being. But having a name for ourselves is an entirely different matter than that of making a name for ourselves. I'm not talking about becoming famous or well-known. I am talking about giving substance to our promise and practice to our principles. Putting actions to our words will always be difficult. But I want to emphasize something. We've done this before. Without sugarcoating history, I believe we can recognize that Unitarians and Universalists have done good. They played vital roles in naming and abolishing of slavery as the original sin of the United States. Unitarian and Universalist churches were among the first religious spheres where the oppression of women was named and opposed, and were among the first to place women in their pulpits. In the 70s, we named institutional sexism as the reason that a long history of ordaining women had not resulted in equality for women in the pulpit. And now the majority of pulpits in the UU Church are filled by women. The only time that has happened in any sizable denomination, as far as I can tell, in the history of religion, except maybe the pagans and Wiccans, but they don't really like pulpits. And we are one of the few denominations in American history to have a woman now in their top position of leadership. We named homophobia as evil, and now more than 90% of our medium and large congregations are classified as welcoming. Of course, racism, sexism, homophobia, and transphobia all still exist in our denomination and in our societal structures, and we have a lot of work to do to combat them. But we have shown that we can change and progress as a UU family, and I firmly believe that we can continue to do so. Just as endless debates about proper names for institutions and structures can be deadening, action without deliberation can also be a life-taking course. Even the best, most effective work of naming can, unfortunately, often be unfulfilling, thankless, and tedious work. But action for action's sake, transformation for the sake of transformation, will never be a solution. Naming is the holy work of setting intentions and focusing energies. Transformation towards a world that names and treats each person as the individual of worth and dignity that they are is a task that will always be in front of us and will require our best efforts to make correct names. It is a task that calls for our very best efforts, and it is a task that, if done well and with full hearts, will ultimately save our souls. Blessed be. I apologize, I forgot to introduce that offering. Our offering today was shared with The Playing Field, which is an organization that cares for and educates children experiencing homelessness. And we appreciate your generosity. We'll now have a presentation from the Friends of the Meeting House.
Good morning. In the spirit of TK's sermon, I'll start by saying my name is Rose Detmer. I am the current president of the Friends of the Meeting House. Frank Lloyd Wright's Meeting House is an architectural wonder, and it deserves to be celebrated as such. But it's much more than that. Frank Lloyd Wright knew that a building is really about the people inside it and how they live their lives. Today, I'd like to introduce you to the Stonehaulers, the FU members that built the Meeting House. Perhaps the most important thing about the Stonehaulers is that they were ordinary FUS members, just like you and me. It's not who they were, but what they did that's so remarkable. And it's how they responded to difficult times within the congregation that can act as a model for us today. To fully appreciate the legacy of the Stonehaulers, we have to go back to 1946. That's when the society decided to construct a new church. The choice of Frank Lloyd Wright as architect may seem obvious. He was, after all, an internationally acclaimed architect, and significantly, he was also a member of FUS. His parents were actually founding members of the congregation. So one segment of the congregation strongly endorsed him from the outset, but another segment was equally opposed, objecting to what they regarded as his character flaws, shall we say, and his reputation for cost overruns. The debate was often contentious, the rhetoric was often charged, but what's important for us today is the resolution to this issue. Two of the members most opposed to hiring Mr. Wright were Harold and Helen Groves, a noted UW professor and his wife. Once the decision was made, however, the Groveses responded in true Unitarian fashion. Harold Groves not only accepted the decision of the congregation, but took on the challenging position as chairman of the building committee. And Helen added her own significant contributions that we'll discuss in a moment. Both were able to set aside their personal opinions, accept the decision of the congregation as a whole, and work enthusiastically toward the society's common goals. In deciding to build a new church, the congregation fully expected that the money they received from the sale of the old church would be sufficient to both buy a plot of land and construct their new building. Once Mr. Wright's completed design was submitted, it became painfully obvious that that was not the case. Substantially more funding would be required. They found themselves facing the possibility of a huge debt, up to perhaps $10,000 per member in today's dollars. That's when their resourcefulness and creativity kicked in. Enter Helen Groves. As all of our FUS guides know, there are 1,000 tons of stone in the landmark meeting house, and it all came from a quarry near Sauk City. Helen Groves suggested that the congregation transport all that stone from the quarry to the building site in order to save the delivery cost. Sounds sort of crazy, right? These people were not used to manual labor. The congregation was made up primarily of professionals and their families. But they were not deterred by such logical or practical considerations. Instead, they forged ahead, and the Stonehaulers were born. They moved that 1,000 tons of stone from the quarry to the worksite using just one small truck they borrowed from the contractor, and by the way, ruined for him. And members too old or too young to lift the stones helped out by serving refreshments. All came together for a common cause. Helen Groves made another key contribution to the construction of the landmark meeting house. Originally, a 120-foot curtain hung between the auditorium and the hearth room. Mr. Wright designed the curtain. His wife, Olga Ivana, wove a sample, and the sample was given to the church to get made. Helen Groves thought it would be a really good idea to save money by having the women of the congregation weave that curtain, despite the fact that none of them had ever woven before. But they were not deterred by practical considerations. They took weaving classes, they borrowed 2 looms from Taliesin, and over the course of a year's work, they created not only a curtain, but a magnificent work of art. And if you're over in the landmark building, there is a piece of it still on display in the loggia. When I look at it, I marvel at the curtain's colors and design and how they so elegantly reflect Mr. Wright's architecture. But perhaps more importantly, I think we can look at that curtain as a metaphor for any seemingly impossible task that we face as a congregation. If we, as a congregation, commit ourselves to the society and to each other, no task is beyond our abilities. As you can probably tell, I have great admiration for the stone haulers, and perhaps a little envy, as their commitment to the society and to each other was truly life-changing for them. I will be expressing my admiration for the stone haulers this fall with a generous donation to the Capital Campaign. I hope that you will join me and that together we can use that campaign as an opportunity to recommit ourselves to the society and to each other. We will now sing the closing hymn, number 308, which was written by former FUS minister Kenneth Patton to commemorate the construction of the meeting house.
to what is good, even if it is a handful of earth. Hold on to what you believe, even if it is a tree which stands by itself. Hold on to what you must do, even if it is a long way from here. Hold on to my hand, even when I have gone away from you. Blessed be, and please be seated for the postlude and choral closing.